final to note is the flexibility. Sometimes, even when you did the pre-testing, you might find that some questions still need to be revised. It is okay to have that flexibility in mind and modify the questions accordingly. You can't say, no, I pre-tested these questions, they are okay, they must remain like that. No, always have that flexibility to modify, to revise the questions, even after the interview has commenced. So don't just kill yourself that, this question must remain the way it is. Any question?
Prof, kindly re-echo on pre-testing the questionnaire, the first slide for pre-testing the questionnaire.
Okay, anybody who wants to help me on that, as I also have some break. When you are structuring a questionnaire, you are like imagining a situation. You are imagining that now if I ask this question, most likely I'll get an answer like this. And most likely where this questionnaire is not so bulky, it should take me like 30, 40 minutes. And this question I think is okay because it is well structured with good grammar. That is your thinking. But when it comes to the practical part of it, administering it, you find that one, it takes longer than you thought. Two, the questions you thought were clear, you ask somebody, he doesn't understand. Perhaps the question is ambiguous. You are asking this, he's answering the other way around. So to ensure that test the suitability, the fitness of that questionnaire, you need to test it beforehand. So you identify an area and some objects to pilot on or to test on, and you go there and administer your questionnaire like you would have administered it right away. Now that testing it, you are trying to check how ordered the questions are. Are they in appropriate flowing order? Are there questions that could have been asked more than twice unknowingly? Are the wordings of the questions clear? Are they understood the way really I want? Are the units of measurement correctly captured? And am I categorizing the sections of the questionnaire properly? And how long does this questionnaire take to administer from the start up to the end of the interview? Is that okay?
Yes, Prof, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other question?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Mike.
Yes, Doctor. There are scenarios whereby sometimes you're going for an interview. You are in a place you're interviewing, maybe in a family which is having a wife and a husband, but you happen to be interviewing the wife only. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the interview, the husband happens to come back, maybe he's drunk. The moment he arrives, he just picks the panga and then he comes to attack you. How do you handle that situation, or how do you avoid it?
This is where we said that from the start you need the consent. of the respondent. That is very, very important. Number two, you have to introduce the objective of the study. You tell somebody, I'm here for ABCD. I request that I have a session with only you, no any other person, because the questions we are discussing are just for an individual. Is that okay with you? We said yes. Then, of course, you can't stop somebody from joining you. This is his wife. The man wants to know what you are doing with his wife. Worse still, he's drunk. If you can't explain to him in his drunkenness, then it's advisable that if he's protesting, you terminate the interview and thank the respondent and get a replacement. But if you explain to him also and he understands, then you proceed. But in most cases, he may want to keep near to listen to what questions you are asking his wife. And that's when most of the questions actually become sensitive. Even the non-sensitive questions become sensitive. For example, if this lady was keeping some money somewhere as her personal savings for any eventualities, women know how to keep some money and nobody else will know that they have money. Then when she would have told you that I have some 20,000 kept somewhere in the absence of the husband, when the husband is there, she will say, no, I don't have any coin. So the sensitivity of the questions increases in the presence of some other third party. If you really sense that now the answers, the trend of answering has changed, the answers seem now to be a bit light compared to how she was answering before, then much as you continue and complete the interview, I would advise that you discard that interview and get a replacement. Okay, any other question?
Yes, Prof.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the scenario whereby some time back I was in the village and some people came to follow up on a certain project that they had done, and they wanted to see whether the training they had with the farmers maybe had positive impact on them. And then when they were interviewing my dad, he said, me, I don't remember you. But then the person who was interviewing said, no, we trained you, so we have come to look at your coffee and see how it has maybe grown, whether you're earning much than before. So in such a scenario, would that interview be still standing or not? Because the person who was replying the questions said he no longer remembers those people.
No, you consider that as a non-response and you can't continue with that. That's a non-response case. Somebody says, no, me, I don't know you, and it means basically that he's not ready to respond. So you replace.
Like in that scenario, my dad asked my mom that, is it you who went for those? My mom was like, me, I don't remember. So, but the guy said, no, you did. So they went on with the interview, but I don't know what they were asking him and what was the response.
No, I think it was wrong to continue with the interview. When somebody says, no, I'm not the one who participated, and the other one says, no, it's not me. Then what are you interviewing? You leave that respondent. Okay. When you are conducting this interview, take note of the duration of the interview. You keep the interview as short as possible. You explain the purpose of your study in such a clear way that the respondent feels that your interview is meaningful. I talked about location where the interviews are conducted. It has to be a conducive environment for the interviewee to give you unbiased and genuine responses. And then these gaps, sometimes you skip a question either in error or whatever, or you didn't record because maybe the farmer or the respondent gave you some answers that would take you much longer to write down, and then you miss many more points. So you only pay attention and you live with some gaps. So at the end of every day, in the evening, you need to go through the questionnaire to ensure that there are no gaps. Don't wait until you come back to Kampala to check whether there are gaps or not. It will be too late. Check on that very day in the evening, and if there are any gaps, find out how to fill them, either by going back to this person or giving him a phone call and say, well, there is this question that I missed. How big is your dam? Then you fill it there and then, without waiting to come back and maybe even identify the gaps when you are at the level of data entry. It should be immediately done at the end of every day. These responses sometimes have biases, and we have a number of sources of bias. Some are avoidable, others we assume they even out over biases and under biases, but it is good that we get a way of minimizing these response biases as much as possible. And among the sources of the biases is instrumentation bias. This is basically from the instrument you are using. For example, if your questions are asking for over specification, or you are overemphasizing something, or you are overgeneralizing, those kinds of questions. Of course, if a question is overgeneral, or if it is overemphasizing, then the respondent also gives an answer that is biased. Or double-barreled questions, like we talked about it yesterday. One question is asking, how much do you earn and where do you get that income from? That is a double-barreled question. It has two questions in one. So because of your instrument, you get responses that are biased. So that is one source, and it basically means that your instrument should be as clean as possible to avoid these kinds of biases. The second source is social desirability. This is when personal preferences deviate from what is socially acceptable. For example, you are interviewing a sample of a community where smoking is socially unacceptable. That community doesn't accept, say, smoking or drinking alcohol. And you are interviewing one of them, and you are asking him, the question is asking about the kinds of drinks this person takes in a month. One is water, how much water. Another one is juice, how much juice. Then milk, how much milk. Another one is alcohol, how much alcohol. Now, this person will not tell you that he actually drinks alcohol, because in that society, it is something that is not acceptable. So much as he drinks it, believe me, he will not tell you because of social desirability. Then you go back saying, that one, he drinks alcohol. That one, he smokes. And yet, this is a community or a society where such a behavior is not acceptable. Then the other response bias comes from the tendency of the respondent to be cooperative. He wants you to feel at home, so he wants to show you that he's cooperative in responding to your questions. So that tendency to be cooperative gives gives biased answers. So you need to assure the respondent to be as honest as possible, to give you exactly what it is, not being so nice to you. Then we have prestige as a source of bias. Prestige, who doesn't want to associate himself or herself with the prestigious positions? Any of you? We all want to feel big.
Yes, Prof.
Yes?
Yes, we all want to be big.
Yes, I want to be up there.
Sorry?
We want to
Yeah, I
be.
don't want.
Who you don't want?
Yes. She's lying.
She must be lying. There's no one who doesn't want to feel big.
She does not.
I think the majority of us want to feel big, to be associated with something prestigious. So this is one source of bias from the respondent, where somebody wants to feel big. For example, you go to a household and you ask, this is about food and nutrition security study. You ask how much or what kind of food you have been eating in the last 7 days. And starting from Monday to Sunday, just tell me, what did you eat on Monday? Say, I ate matoke and beef. about Tuesday. Tuesday it was rice and chicken. About Wednesday. Wednesday, that one was, I had some rice and some sweet potato plus fish. Then another something that puts him in a prestigious position. But when in actual sense, this person has been feeding on cassava without sauce for the last 1 month. But because when he tells you how poor he has been feeding, you put him to a low category of people. And yet he wants to feel big. So he will tell you an exaggerated position. And that gives biased responses. The other biased response comes from the ya na ya saying. There are people who are yes people, who are always positive, and there are also other people who are extremely negative. No people. Everything, that one. Do you get enough rainfall here? Nothing. We don't have. It is always dry. But the place is almost flooded. How good is your maize yield? We get almost just one basket when the guy is harvesting tons. No, how much money are you paid when you do this work? Almost we are working for free. There isn't much. That is a nice saying guy, a no guy, a negative guy. Then the yeah man or woman, everything, even what is not there, it is yes, positive. Oh, how is the yield in this place? We get a lot of food. We are okay. When actually they are starving. How good are your milking cows? These are very good. No, I get enough milk. I even sell. No, everything is good when he's milking half a liter per day. So be aware of such a kind of people, and to avoid that response bias, you avoid questions that demand the answers yes or no. Do you get good yields? The answer would be either yes or no. Now, the negative person will say no, even when the yields are good. The positive person will say yes, even when the yields are poor. So to avoid that, you should minimize as much as possible the yes-no questions in your questionnaire. Just minimize them. The other source of response bias is the threat. Threat, for example, an institution is in the process of restructuring its human resource. And then you go there and you are asking about the working conditions of this staff, how much you earn, how many hours you work in a day. Do you think he'll give you genuine answers when there is a possibility of losing the job? So that environment where there is a threat, always avoid interviewing. The timing of the interview is very important. The other related case is hostility. If an environment is hostile for one reason or the other, and then it's advisable that you postpone the research, or you do it well knowing that you are working in a hostile environment and there is a likelihood that most of the responses you get are biased. Any example of that hostility?
Karamoja region, which is always having war.
Yes, you could be doing some research in the Karamoja area, and the respondents may think that you have gone there to steal their cattle or to take away guns from them. It is a charged environment, it is hostile. So that hostility could result into getting biased responses.
Prof. Hello.
Yes, Faith?
Rachel. This is Rachel.
Okay.
I was thinking, even in a home, it may be here in Central Uganda, but a home whereby the husband and wife are always fighting, quarreling. I think it could also be an example of hostility.
Yes, that is a good example. Even within a household, the environment could be hostile. The members of the household are on conflict. It's a hostile household, and you are there to do some study on gender equity, and you are making even the situation more hostile. So in that situation, yes, you'll get answers, but most of the answers will be biased. The other source is auspices, and I give an example of where the respondents know the sponsor of the study. Like one of you said they were following up, doing some monitoring study, and this respondent knows that yes, at this banana plantation I have, I got funding from NADS, for example, or from NARO. I got training from NARO. Now they are following up. The one who gave me the money or the inputs is, of course, not the one who has come, but he has introduced himself as doing a study for taking on the adoption of the technologies NADS gave you. Now, the respondent will think that you are connected to the sponsor, and the answers he will give you will be such a sweet answers, such that you get happy that the support he received actually was helpful. That is on one side. The other side is the answers he will give you would be to the contrary, hoping that you'll give him more. I know you see the seedlings you gave us, they were all cut by termites. So if you have more, please give us. That is one side. Another side, somebody will say, oh yeah, you gave us a lot of push. The trees are growing very well, even when the trees are not there. So it can take either way. That bias of auspices. The other source of bias is the mental set. Mental set is where the mind gets biased by the very first questions you ask. And here I give an example. You have a question asking, which crops did you grow in the last 5 years? Then this person will genuinely give you the crops he has been growing in the past 5 years. Now, all the questions that follow after that question, the mind has been pegged to last 5 years. All the answers, he will answer them in the perspective of the last 5 years. So you have his mental capacity has been set to that time frame. And of course, that is not the responses you would have expected. But everything will be tagged to that kind of period because of the mental set. Order bias is another key source of bias. And this is largely the way you ordered your questions. And it again goes back to the other discussion that take the sensitivity of questions and bring the more sensitive questions maybe at the end. Order the other questions in a flowing way and present them or express the questions in a way that is actually systematic. For example, your study could be, give me an example of your study. Yes? Am I still with you?
Yes.
Yes,
So
Prof, we are here.
Give me an example of a study. Not a complicated one.
Prof, for example, like if you're trying to make a study to find out how many students have enrolled on Mwele, maybe we can use that. We're trying to find out how many students have enrolled to Mwele in Kayes.
Yes, so who are you interviewing in that case?
In this case, you may be interviewing the different students from the different schools.
Okay.
That make up Kayes.
Your respondents are the students, and you want to know how many have enrolled on Mwere.
Yeah.
And you have a questionnaire. You come and introduce yourself, your study, your objectives. You assure this student of confidentiality, and you say, I have a questionnaire. I request for your 15 minutes to go through it. He says, okay, go ahead. Now, the first question will be, now, what's your name? He writes, what's your program? BSc Agriculture. And the third question, how old are you? The students say, hey, why do you want my age? What does my age have to do with registering on Mwere? You see the snag?
Yes.
I don't see why you should ask me about my age. It has nothing to do with the objectives you have told me about your study. There's no connection at all to the interviewee. Okay? You are interviewing, you have gone to the farmer, your study is on cotton, you have given the objectives, you want to know the kind of pests that threaten cotton production. And you want to also know the attitudes of the farmers on the new approaches of fighting these pests and diseases. That is your study. Those are your objectives. And exactly that's what you tell the farmer. So you ask for an interview. They say, okay, that study is also relevant to us. Please go ahead and ask us. So you start these general questions, the name, their contact address, blah, blah, blah. How many children do you have in this household? Come on. What is the relationship between the number of children I have and the pests of cotton? You see how irrelevant, irrelevant the question can be to the respondent. But for you as a researcher, in your objectives and your analysis plan, you want to see whether a household with so many or so few members has a higher preference for the new technology or not. That is your hypothesis, which makes sense. But this farmer will not see any connection, household size and cotton pests. This is simply because of the order of questions, and it creates the order bias. If you had asked that question like at the end of the interview, that bias wouldn't have appeared. But the way you have ordered the questions creates that bias and biased responses. Location and privacy, we have discussed that already. Where the interview takes place matters. Somebody will give you answers based on where he's located and how private the interview is. Others don't mind whether there are people or not, they will answer, but there are those who really want privacy in answering your questions.
Prof.
Yeah.
In a scenario whereby the person you're interviewing has a personal attachment to a particular topic or subject, maybe like farmers, especially now like cattle keepers, who are attached more to their animals. And in any question you ask about their animals, they always be positive. They don't want you to take them as maybe who have failed in that particular aspect. Do they also fall under the yeah and naysayers, or it's another part of?
It could be under prestige. Somebody doesn't want you to underrate him. He wants to be rated in a certain position, a certain rank. So even when the animals are starving, he doesn't want to show that he has starving animals. He wants to be counted among the prestigious people. So that could fall under prestige.
What of the politicians?
The politicians are just telling lies. They will always spice up things that don't even exist. Okay, any other? So I stopped sharing this one. And yesterday, I promised to show you how to generate a random sample from a list of objects using Microsoft Excel. Now, like here, Do you see my screen, my Excel screen?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, I have a number of farmers. These are 42 farmers. We can say they are coffee farmers, and they are located in different districts. We have Kabale, Ruwero, etc., etc. Here I have, they are grouped. They are grouped in by district. Basically, that's why you see those different colors. The colors don't mean anything. But the last column shows that the first 8 are from Kabale. The second set from Ruwero. But you may not have that list structured like that by district. You could, for example, be having a list of names in alphabetical order. The names in alphabetical order, let me say, is my whatever is hidden. I don't see my sort button. Do you see it on my page?
Yes, we can see it.
Mine is hidden by.
Prof,
Yes.
on your right corner is where the last one, the right corner is where it is. No, home, go home.
Yes.
Yes, continue. No, right, go continue. Oh, there, continue, 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 continue. Last, the last items. So, sort and filter, yeah, last items on your right.
I don't see it. Oh,
that
yes.
one. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So you can have them in alphabetical. That sort is not working for me. It should give me some other option. That is not the sort I want. Okay, I've got it. It was covered by my whatever ribbon. So when I go to data here, this is what I was looking for. Then I want this sort. And I sort by name of farmer from A to Z. So I get them, the names are listed in alphabetical order. So this first one is no longer important, but they are listed in alphabetical order. That would be another ordering of your list. It doesn't matter which order. It can be in any presented order. The LC one is reading the names and you are writing, and you compile a long list of 42 farmers. Now, having done that, having compiled that list, in the last column, the first column is just serial number. The second column is name of the farmer. The third column is the district. Now in the last column, you type a random number. Okay. Here I type a random number. These are the random numbers we are going to generate. And in the first cell, you type equal signs, then RAND, open bracket, close bracket, and enter. So the first random number appears. When you get that, you copy it, you copy that cell to all the other cells. I hope you know how to copy in Excel up to the last. So the random number is copied down the cells. So these are the respective random numbers for the respective names. And each number is different from the other. Some are small, like the first one is 0.02. Others are big, like 0.8. They are basically random numbers. Having got those numbers, then you can sort these numbers. You sort by this number. Like we sorted by the name to put them in alphabetical order. Now here you do the sorting, but by the random number. So I highlight my data set and I go back to data. I go to sort and I sort by not by farmer this time, but by random number. I can decide to sort from the smallest to the largest, or from largest to the smallest. It doesn't matter, whichever. And then I get this sorted random number. The biggest is 0.4. The smallest will be at the bottom 0.05. But they correspond to some names. Now you see the order of names has changed corresponding to these numbers. The first name before was starting with A, but now we are starting with K, and it's no longer in that order. The districts are also mixed up following these random numbers arranged either from the smallest to the largest or from the largest to the smallest. And once you do this sorting, then you pick the first nth elements, which is your sample size. If, for example, your sample size is 10, then you pick the first 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you pick these. This is now your sample you have selected. If you want 20, then you count 1 up to 20 and you pick those first 20. Or you can pick those first 20 from the bottom. Okay? As simple as that. I want to hear from you.
We are following.
Hello, bro. I'm just wondering, because the random numbers we selected from the largest to the smallest, but I see some bigger figures. I don't know. They seem to be in the middle. Or is that how it randomizes the whole thing?
Yes, in essence, it is already a random.
Okay.
Incidentally, if you do another change, if you do anything else on this same thing, Like if I changed this number 19 to say number 2, you see the whole thing even changes here. The order even here gets randomized. You saw what I did?
Yes, I've seen. Yeah,
Now,
yes,
now you see I've gone back to 19, it was 19. But even this number is from when it was originally 19. I don't know whether you have noted that.
yes, thank you.
Any change here, like I put 3, it will change the whole series of random numbers. That's how random it can be. Now I go back to my 19. Don't expect to get how it was, 0.6, but originally it was like 0.8. So it is a very nice and simple method of getting a random sample. And when putting in your thesis, you say, I used a simple random sampling using micro Excel random number sampling method. Then nobody will ask you a follow-up question. That is perfect. You only have to get a list of your objects. You list them in any way, and then you apply them to this Microsoft random numbering. You pick the first nth number of elements.
Okay. I have not understood that. I thought you said that you can sort in reference to random number from largest to smallest or vice versa. But now I'm seeing you changing from number, like serial number 19 and 3, then that's when the random number changes. I've not understood.
No, that came later when I was saying that this command of sorting from largest to smallest or smallest to largest is a normal Excel software arrangement. You don't have an option, okay? But it does not mean that the numbers you get will necessarily be chronologically in order. But let's do it again quickly. I don't need this. I only have my list of farmers number. I'm arranging them by the first column, which is number, starting from the smallest to the largest. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a list of 42 people. In alphabetical order, they are mixed up. I have, but I want to randomly select 10. So I go to the last column. I put equal signs, RAND, that is for random. I open the bracket and I close the bracket and I enter. Once you enter, you get that. I think I put it in the wrong place. Here I should put, say, a random number. Yeah, sorry about that. So this is the first cell corresponding to farmer number 1. So that's why I put equal signs, then rand, and I open the bracket and I close it and I enter, I get that random number and I copy it up to the next farmer. That is copied to the next farmer. Much as these numbers already look random, still they correspond to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you haven't randomized. So to do that, you get the whole data set now, the whole list. I highlight it and I do the sorting. This time, not by number, not by name of a farmer. If I select by name of a farmer, it will arrange them in alphabetical order. If I arrange them by district, it will arrange them by district. If I select by random number, that's what we're interested in, it will do that. And here the option of smallest to largest or largest smallest is already given. So you pick any of the two. You don't have a bigger choice here. Just select either from smallest to largest or largest smallest and click OK. So this is what it is giving us. And interestingly, you see the other person who was number one is now no longer number one, despite the fact that we have used the same formula. It still does a lot of randomization, such that each one of these farmers have an equal chance of being picked at any one particular time. I hope it's clear.
Yes.
Okay. And I was saying the software is so random sensitive that you see now the first farmer Bagenda has number 18. But in this data set, if I changed this number 18 to say number 1, the random number will change. The name will not change, but the numbering will change. That's how sensitive these numbers are. Okay, I stop sharing that also. Any other general question? Looks like the attendance online is overwhelming compared to physical meeting. How many of you are here and they are not attending? They have just logged in and have gone away.
Prof, we are around.
We are present.
We are around.
We are present. I'm sorry.
And see,
We are around, but the network is
here.
okay, that's very good.
Here.
Prof, we are around, sir.
Yes, I see we even have 9 members, but they are welcome. Yes, Warugembe, you have your hand up.
Prof, I'm here also.
And okay. Good. Meaning that online is superior to physical.
Very much.
better.
Very much.
Yes.
1,000 times.
So what are you suggesting?
Maybe using our lectures online.
Which I will not buy.
Even next week, we have some lectures online.
But we have had enough of
No, not online. I want to do a physical lecture.
No.
I also suggest
the remaining ones online.
They're about to chase us from the jobs.
But online will also chase you away from jobs because
No, there you can visit and you study and you do your other stuff.
online.
The physical lecture is always the best lecture.
so is that ethical?
Some things we shall confess.
Bro.
You confess.
Prof, we can have the remaining lectures online.
Yeah, for the next week.
Yeah, we have had enough of physical, so I think the rest can be online.
What do you mean enough of physical?
Sorry to ask, but what do you mean by enough of physics?
Enough, it's not enough.
We shall discuss it further next week when we meet on Monday.
Physically over.
Prof. Let's meet physical on Monday and talk more about it.
Prof, I thought we were discussing it.
We should finalize.
But
That is
after
physically when we meet on discuss about it.
What do you mean by finalizing? Finalizing whether we meet physical or online?
Yeah.
after Monday, we shall be left with only 2 classes.
I'm sorry?
After Monday, we shall be left with only 2 classes to wind up with the course.
Yes, we have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday only.
I would request for the next week to continue online.
I said we shall discuss it when we meet physically.
Okay.
All right, Prof. That
Okay,
is
Prof.
Okay. We have also other techniques of collecting the data which are not survey data. And this slide lists some of them. One of them is experiments, which is very common with you. The other one is past experiments. Then ethnomethodology. We have observations. We have document study. We have focus group discussion and participatory as the other different techniques of data collection that are non-survey. Each of these techniques has its merits and demerits. Each of them has a purpose and stops you from using a combination of any of these, including a survey. It doesn't mean that if you are to do experiments, you don't do a survey. Or it doesn't mean that if you do a survey, you don't do observations. So you can use a combination of any of these, including a survey. My slide is going down. I've gone to the second slide. It doesn't move on your side. Are we together moving down?
Yes, we.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, on experiments.
Prof.
Yeah. Experiments, there are two approaches we use to establish relationships between variables. One is correlational analysis, and the other one is experimentation. With the correlational analysis, when you are basically studying how two variables are related, there is very limited control over the research environment. And sometimes that control is only limited to manipulation of data. So the conclusion you get is not as precise. You can't be so conclusive, but you have established some relationship between variables anyway, and that correlation analysis is acceptable for some purpose. But if you want to concretize your conclusion on the relationship of two or more variables, then you better go for experimentation, whereby you as an experimenter has some control over the research environment. You can have control over the environment within which you are doing research. So it means that experimentation is much richer than correlational analysis in as far as establishing the relationship between variables is concerned. So these experiments have advantages in one, establishing causality, the causal effect relationships. We confidently establish what has caused what through experiments. In this case, you can also establish a causal effect relationship through surveys, but an experiment is superior to a survey because in experiment, the environment condition is controlled by the researcher. But in a survey, the environment of the research is least controlled by the researcher. So it has that strong advantage over the surveys. So with controlling the environment and fixing one of the variables as the control, the researcher gets reliable data, even if the sample size is small. You don't have to have as large a sample size as a survey requires. A small sample size could get in as more reliable data because of that control compared to an environment where there is no control. And with an experiment, you have less chances of committing an error that would have been caused by external factors. Then the third advantage is with experiment, you have the opportunity to do a longitudinal analysis. That is analysis or a study over a period of time. If you compare to a survey, a longitudinal study for a survey is a bit challenging because the situations change over time. You go and interview people on what they grow, and they tell you they grow cabbages because it is the rainy season. You want to go back in July, ask them what they grow, they will tell you here we don't grow anything. But last time we were growing cabbages and I wanted to see how the cabbages are faring now. They said no, they are off season. But for an experiment, you can do a very good longitudinal analysis because you can control some of those external factors and you do a very good study over a period of time. Observations and data collection are done at intervals over a period of time, holding some factors constant. That is the control we are talking about. However, these experiments have some disadvantages, one of which is the artificial environment you create. By controlling the environmental factors, you are creating an artificial environment. I give an example of changing in social behavior. when you are studying the behavior of, say, an individual, and you confine him or her in some controlled environment, the behavior might actually change because of the artificial environment you have created. And therefore, you may not get even reliable data like you would have got if you left that object or that person in a free, natural environment. The other disadvantage is the experimenter effect. Experimenters have expectations, and these expectations can affect the results. Because with these expectations, the experimenter works towards achieving what is rhyming with the hypothesis. And you want to interpret or misinterpret the results to conform with your hypothesis. You are trying to bend the results to conform with your hypothesis. So there is that experimenter effect. And some of you even go an extra mile and even go back to the proposal and adjust or modify the hypothesis. The way you had stated them, you find that results are not significant. Then let me go and adjust the hypothesis such that the results conform with the hypothesis. That is the disadvantage with experiments. The third disadvantage is lack of control, whereby we place the subjects in a lab, and when you place them in a lab, it will alter the very behavior one is studying. It is similar to the first disadvantage of artificial environment. So you place your subjects in a lab, and the behavior you are studying completely changes. And yet, you can't say, let me conduct the experiment in a natural environment, because it will not be possible to control other variables. So there you compromise, you reach a middle position. I put the subjects in the lab, the behavior alters. I put them outside in the natural environment, I don't control other variables. So that is the disadvantage with the experiments. The fourth is the sample size. Like I said, you can work with a small sample size, but that small size sample has disadvantages because the bigger the sample size, the higher the precision, and therefore the reliability of the conclusions. But then with an experiment, we can't afford big sample sizes. They are difficult to put under control. For example, if you have a lab, you can't put so many samples in a small oven. So there you are forced to work with small sample sizes, but then you compromise with the precision, the representativeness of the population. And finally, ethical considerations. This is especially in the social sciences, whereby, say, you have confined people, analysts, test some product which you have developed in your food science lab. So you confine these people that keep here. You test sample one in the morning, don't go out for lunch. You test the second sample in the afternoon and later in the evening. I think it is not ethical to confine people in such a way. That is a simple example. There are some serious studies where you really have to confine people in an altered environment, and it may not really be ethical. And that's why you see most medical studies, they experiment on wild animals, the rats, I don't know which other animal they use, and all the tests are done on rats because for them they don't have that human rights element, and then they apply the findings to human beings when they are 99% sure that the results they have from the rats as expected. Otherwise, if we were to conduct that directly on people, it would have ethical considerations. I think you had one time when these COVID vaccine manufacturers wanted to test them on Africans, and people were wondering why Africans, why don't you test them closer to where they are manufactured? Members, I think it's time we stop here unless there is a question.
We are requesting you share some notes, Professor.
But I've been sharing them since 11.
Prof, can you please pardon about regression analysis, correlation analysis?
Correlation, I was saying, it can give you a relationship between variables. But the way you do that correlation analysis, you have very little over the research environment. It's more or less of an incident that two variables are related or not related without full over environment. And in some cases, you find that there is very limited data that can really give you a strong stand that this relationship is actually firm, because the environmental condition is not controlled, and implementation becomes superior in a sense that the environment controlled. You can confidently say these two variables are related because all these have been put under control. Nothing else is causing this relationship apart from the interaction of these only. Any other?
Hello, Professor.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
In terms of reliability, if you are to weigh in between the experimental designs and this research done through surveys, which one do you recommend is much more reliable? Which, when someone chose to reproduce it, can attain such consistent results?
It all depends on the objective of your study. The objective can dictate whether you need to use a survey or whether you have to use an experiment. The important thing is that with an experiment, the environmental conditions are controlled. There is some element of control by the experimenter. In a survey, you don't have any control on any external factors or the environment. So it all depends on your objectives. I can't say one is superior to the other. No, not just a blanket statement like that. There are areas where an experiment is superior to a survey and areas where a survey is superior to an experiment. For example, if you have to have a large sample size, you can't do it in an experimental design. You now have to go for a survey. So don't say a survey is better than an experiment or vice versa. It depends on the objectives and the hypothesis you are testing.
even in scientific studies and scientific researches, they are still on the same scale?
Yes, they are on the same scale. You can't say your study is more superior because you used a survey or because you used an experiment. No, they are on the same scale. Otherwise, you are free to you are free to leave at leisure. You are free to leave, and if you want to stay and ask more questions, me, I'm still here.